So at this point in our trip, we had just had a lovely time at Drishti and Vaibhav's wedding. It was so grand and so much fun, but went by so quick. So now it was time for us to travel to Paris. So we're in Udaipur, and we got a taxi or they had arranged drivers for us that took us to the Udaipur airport, and we flew from there to New Delhi. Um, we kind of were a little nervous because we were told in the morning about the fog in New Delhi this time of year, or smog or whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's cold. It's colder, right? It was December, so that kind of traps the pollution and the fog because of the temperature. And during that time of year, a lot of farmers, we were told, burn their fields to like clear their fields for the next growing season. So the smoke from that kind of creates this like situation in New Delhi that can make it so this time every year flights are more likely to be delayed or canceled. So we were a little nervous after learning about that, but ultimately our flight like really didn't get delayed for more than an hour, and we got to New Delhi with plenty of time. When we were at the New Delhi airport, we had to transfer to a different terminal. So we actually had to go outside and get on a bus, and the bus drove through traffic. So that was kind of cool. We saw a very small glimpse of New Delhi. It felt like we were back in Cairo, kind of from a traffic perspective. We also had to wear masks because the air quality was like in the 400s, like as super hazardous because of all that like smog that was getting trapped. So then, once we got to our terminal in New Delhi, we were able to get through security again and then head to Paris, our final destination. It was an overnight like travel experience, and I had a cold or some type of cold like illness, so it was a little rough getting through that. But we were blessed that no one was sitting next to us in our row for the flight, so we got to like spread out a little bit, which is super nice, and we actually got some sleep, which is pretty rare for us on a flight to be able to actually fall asleep instead of just be awake the whole time. So Air France, we had told them ahead of time that I had a peanut allergy, so I got this allergen-free meal that was free of all allergens. And it was like basically a frozen thing that they defrosted of like quinoa and vegetables that was like still cold and pretty disgusting if I'm being honest. But they also had some like sort of applesauce thing, and the applesauce was good. They might have had some like rice pudding too, and that was good. But how was the food for you, Logan?
It's great.
Yeah. Do you remember what you had, or it's been a
I
while?
remember they had good bread. I think they had kind of a chicken or a meatloaf. I can't remember.
Yeah. Nice. So we made it through the flight. We were a little tired when we arrived, but we're doing good. We went through customs, got our bags, and then we tried to make accounts for like the apps that they use for public transportation, but it kept coming up with like error messages when we were trying to register. So we just went closer to the train, and we found out we just we could buy cards and buy like a trip from the airport. So the trip from the airport was like 13 euros, and then the cards themselves were about 2 euros each. So it ended up being like 30 euros for us to get to our hotel. It's kind of interesting because like a normal metro trip is like 250 per person, but they kind of have that like upcharge coming to and from the airport. But we got to our hotel, which was the Hotel Rochouart,
Something like that.
something like that,
Rochechouart,
in Montmartre.
Montmartre.
So this is a hotel I found just like looking at Paris hotels through Marriott, and I was very happy with the stay there. You know, Paris hotels aren't known for their size, so I think our hotels in Egypt and our definitely our hotel for the wedding were very nice. This hotel was nice, but it was just like a little bit smaller, a little bit simpler, I guess you could say. But it was lovely how it was kind of like, I like the way it sat on the street, and it was like decorated for the holidays very nicely. And just that whole kind of like area of France is very pretty. So it had natural beauty. We got there because of like the overnight flight. We got there way, way, way before check in. Like I want to say like 8 or 9 in the morning. And we weren't expecting them to have something for us, but they did have a room available for us already, which we really lucked out that was the case. It was kind of funny, like because of my cold, my ears still hadn't popped from the flight when we checked in, so I was like trying to talk to them, and it was kind of like I could barely hear anything. But we got into our room fine, and I took a shower and laid down for a little while and like started feeling a little bit better. And then, because I kind of had an idea, we both did, of like what we wanted to do while we were there, but we hadn't like booked anything as far as like gotten tickets for things we wanted to see, which was something we should have. I should have booked it earlier. Logan did a good job booking things for Egypt, and I was supposed to book things for France, but life got busy. And a lot of people come to Paris during the holidays. So, our advice to you for your Paris holiday trip would be don't be like us. Book things in advance because the kind of big bummer was that the Louvre was sold out. I think it does just normally get sold out this time of year, but some compounding factors were the Louvre robbery of the like French royal gems was only a few months earlier. So that obviously caused quite a disruption for the museum. And so that was a few months earlier, but then a week or so before we got to Paris, Louvre workers actually went on strike because they were kind of saying that like they were upset about how things were handled in the management of the museum, and they think like for their own safety, for the good of the museum, there needed changes to be made, I guess. So that might have contributed to also the shortage of tickets. But so we quickly looked at Versailles, which is another thing we wanted to do, and they had like tickets available, but only really on that next day of Christmas Eve. So we quickly booked those tickets. And then yeah, after resting up, we knew there was like a bunch of stuff that we just wanted to go walk around and see. So even though it was cold, we bundled up and we started walking around. There was some food by our hotel that was kind of towards the Moulin Rouge, so we just saw that from the street, which was cool. I know we've watched that like movie together before, and we ended up getting breakfast at this cute cafe. We got a cheese omelet, a caramel crepe, and it was really good quality and it wasn't that expensive either. Yeah, enjoyed that breakfast a lot. And then we took their version of the metro down to the Eiffel Tower. That's kind of where we were like starting out. So we got to kind of walk around there. There's this part where it's like it's free, but you just walk through like security real quick because they're trying to protect the area, and you can go like walk right under the Eiffel Tower and around it. So we got to do that, and then we also tried to go to the more grassy area, the Champ de Mars,
Champ de Mars.
just to see like a more far away view of the Eiffel Tower. Yep. What do you think about the Eiffel Tower?
It was pretty impressive. It was a lot bigger than I realized.
Yeah, and you can kind of see like being on the ground, you can see how people take elevators or like trolley things to get up to it if you want to like get the views and stuff. And there's like Christmas markets and like restaurants there too. So our next stop, we took a bus to the Arc de Triomphe,
L'Arc de Triomphe.
which is kind of funny. Like we had loaded up our Metro cards for like a couple passes, but your Metro card doesn't work on the buses versus like when we lived in New York, right? We didn't even have to get a card. You could just like tap your credit card and it would work. Or here in Atlanta, you do have like an app that you load, but it works the same on a bus or the train. So we were like, oh no, what do we do? But the guy was just like, where are you going? And we're like, the Arc de Triomphe. And he was like, just get on the bus and it's fine. So he didn't make us pay for anything or wait for the next bus, which was nice. So we got to see that. It's very pretty arch. And connected to that, we got to start working down the Champs-Élysées,
Champs-Élysées,
where we saw the Christian Dior store had holiday decorations. I popped into the Longchamp store. And it's always fun to like see the goodies they have in there. We were there's this bag that I think is cute. It's like a leather smaller bag, and we had seen that it was like 85 on the outside. So we were like, oh my gosh, like that's actually crazy because I was like, I remembered the bag being like $400, $500, and it was just like a keychain that had like the racehorse on it that was the $85, and then sure enough the bag was a bit more expensive. So most of the or all of the Champs-Élysées stuff we were doing was more of a window shopping exercise. We kind of walked by Ray, which we did end up eating at while we were there, but it's just kind of known for its like macaroons. And we saw Tiffany and Co. from the outside. We saw Chanel. We saw the Galeries Lafayette, one of the stores that's on the Champs-Élysées. There's a bigger one that I visited later on in the week that's not directly on the street. One thing that was interesting there is that Stranger Things was just announcing their next season. And it was like a global rollout, I guess. So they had in the middle of this Galeries Lafayette store, they had a big Christmas tree that was beautiful, and it said Stranger Things on it, and people were loving it. So that was just interesting to see that there.
Yeah. And then we kept walking down the Champs-Élysées and got to the Place de Concorde,
Place de Concorde.
where the Egyptian obelisk is. And as we stated in the previous video, we saw that obelisk in Luxor. And this, where the obelisk is where the guillotine stood during the French Revolution. And over 1,300 people were executed here, including Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. And what's a little different with this obelisk is that it has a gold tip that was added in 1998. And the hieroglyphics on the obelisk praise Ramses II. And so as we were at the Place de Concorde looking at the obelisk, we looked back at where we had come from, and we could see all the way down the Champs-Élysées and see the Arc way in the distance. It was kind of cool. And then we could look the other way, and we could see the Tuileries Gardens. And very close to the obelisk, there was a fountain that we saw called the Fountain of Rivers.
Then we kept our walk going. We walked through the Tuileries Gardens. It was just like really pretty architecture buildings all around. There was a Christmas market there, so we decided we were feeling pretty cold, so we tried to find some, how do we pronounce it? Chocolat chaud?
Chocolat chaud.
Hot chocolate. So we got cups of those that we still have, like we brought home with us, that say like something about, is it Joyeux Noël? Like
Joyeux Noël.
Merry Christmas in French, at the Tuileries Gardens, which is a cool little souvenir, basically.
Souvenir.
And then we just kept walking to see the outside of the Louvre. It's closed on Tuesdays, so not people that were around were just trying to like kind of look at it from the outside, but not able to go in. And then from there, I guess we hopped back on the train, and we went to see the Notre Dame. So that's like on this island part. Does it have a specific name?
Île de la Cité.
Yeah. So that's like the original city center. So that had the Notre Dame. So we just saw it from the outside. There's a really long queue. I guess like during the holidays, so probably a lot of people want to visit it. And then like we had seen like a lot of the kind of touristy sites we wanted to see just in that one walk. So we took the metro home, and we got pizza on the way and kind of relaxed, given that we had not really had a great night's sleep the night before as part of our travel day. So it was nice to like kind of have a good night's rest. So then on day 2 was Christmas Eve, December 24th. And we kind of woke up. We had already booked our tickets the day before to go to Versailles, so that was gonna be the big thing we were gonna do that day. But kind of for breakfast, we weren't sure how easy it was gonna be to get food on Christmas Day. So we went to a grocery store right near our hotel and purchased some food. Like I got my Coke Zero, we got a delicious baguette, just made fresh at the grocery store, some butter, a cheese platter. I got some like meats, deli meats, and we got chocolate croissants, almonds, yogurt, just kind of a spread that we could put in our mini fridge, just in case we needed some snacks on Christmas Day. So we ate a little bit on that after putting away in our hotel, and then we made our way to Versailles. So our tickets specifically were to get into the palace as well as the estate of Trianon.
Trianon.
And our entry time for the palace was around like 2 p.m., which was nice because we knew we'd have enough time to like see the palace before it closed, but we didn't have to wake up super early because it's about a 40-minute to like an hour train ride outside of the Paris like city center. So we did get there like a few hours before our timed entry to the palace, which was 2 p.m. And while we were there early, we could walk around the gardens. So everyone can kind of access the gardens without buying a ticket. They're pretty vast, and it was cool to see it this time of year, but I'm sure they're beautiful in the spring. It'd be nice to be able to go back. And then the Grand Trianon Estate, the Petite Trianon Estate, and the Queen's Hamlet were also things you could look at with our ticket that they opened more towards like noon. So we got to like go in and tour them and take pictures. They were also like beautiful estates, and I think they have like some historical significance. Like when the Queen of England would come to visit, she'd stay at the Grand Trianon, just kind of like a guest house to Versailles, basically. Is how I would describe it. Yeah, and then after we were kind of done walking around, we were able to go inside the palace at our timed entry, and it was just very amazing as you can imagine. I think the thought that came into my head was that it put the Met in New York to shame just because of the size of the paintings and how many there were, and the architecture surrounding that artwork was just so grand. Another highlight for me was Marie Antoinette's room. It was just very beautiful colors and very ornately decorated.
And then, yeah, one of my favorite parts of Versailles was the Hall of Mirrors. It was commissioned by Louis XIV, the Sun King, and then built between 1678 and 1684. And it's most famous for being the location where the peace treaty for World War I was signed. But what I think I hadn't remembered was that it's also in 1871 during the Franco-Prussian War where the German leaders gathered to proclaim the creation of the German Empire. And at the end of that war, France lost the territories of Alsace-Lorraine,
Alsace-Lorraine.
which is eastern France, and this fueled a lot of bitterness among the French population and revenge-minded politics among the politicians. And then that led to, at the end of World War I in 1919, the Treaty of Versailles was signed there, and they kind of, because the French had been humiliated in 1871, they in turn humiliated the Germans and forced a very harsh treaty for the Germans to accept, accepting full blame for the war. They had to give back Alsace-Lorraine and drastically reduce their military, pay massive reparations, and the Allies believed that they were securing peace, but instead, they planted a lot of seeds for resentment in the German population, which led to World War II. And so that was, the Hall of Mirrors, very cool. At the time when it was built, mirrors were very expensive, so they were kind of showing off their wealth by having a room full of hundreds of mirrors. And then another room that we went to was the Gallery of Battles, and it was just very interesting. I've read quite a bit about English history and have read a few books on French history, and so there were specific battles that I was looking for that I was more familiar with, but the French had lost a few of those battles. Like one battle that the English are very proud of is the Battle of Agincourt that was won by King Henry V, an ancestor of King Henry VIII. And so I was looking for that battle, chronologically as we were walking down the Gallery of Battles, and it's not included now, in hindsight, obviously, because the French lost that battle. And then also, one of the more famous battles that the French were a part of is the Battle of Waterloo, the battle that Napoleon lost. And that is obviously, again, not in the Gallery of Battles. A couple of battles that are included. One that was interesting to see is the Battle of Pyramids because we had just been to Egypt, and then one of the more famous battles in French history is the Battle of Austerlitz.
So as we were kind of done with our inside of the palace tour, we worked up an appetite, so we got to eat at Angela's, which is just within the palace. And there we got some pastries and eclair, macaroons. I want to make sure I'm saying that right. So I'm going to play the pronunciation.
Macaron.
Macaron. Okay, cool. Is it the French president that's Macron?
Yeah.
I think that's what I was confusing it with. Not to be confused with the politician. Then we just got like a ham sandwich on a baguette. That was delicious. We like that meal a lot.
So then, yeah, we left the kind of primary buildings of Versailles. And actually, before we left, I was wanting to make sure that I visited the tennis court because in high school, I had studied the French Revolution, and one thing that my high school teacher talked about a lot, that was on our midterm and final, was the importance of the tennis court oath that happened with Louis the 16th. And so I was looking for it. I was expecting it to be on the grounds of, kind of near the Hall of Mirrors and um, the Gallery of Battles and all these other, big, nice buildings. But when we looked it up on Google Maps, the tennis court is kind of a walk, half a mile to, a quarter of a mile to half a mile down the hill from the palace. And so, yeah, what happened here basically, June 20th of 1789, the representatives of the Estates General were locked out of their meeting hall by King Louis the 16th, and they got really upset about not being permitted to gather because the king was kind of rejecting their authority to pass legislation on behalf of the state. And so they said, we got to find a place to gather. So they went down to the tennis court. And the tennis court oath was they would not disband until France had a constitution. And so it was the first open act of defiance against royal authority. Historians often call this the birth of modern democracy in France, and the moment the revolution became inevitable. And within weeks, the storming of the Bastille had happened, and absolute monarchy had collapsed. So it's a historically very important um, site. And yeah, I think that morning or the night before, possibly the morning of, we were listening to a history podcast called Revolutions by Mike Duncan, and we listened to the episode that he wrote about the Women's March on Versailles. And in it, he tells that on October 5th, 1789, 5 to 6,000 Parisian women uh, marched angrily about bread shortages and high prices from Paris to Versailles. And then on the next day, the 6th, they forced Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette to leave Versailles and to move to Paris. And so it's kind of another huge turning point in the French Revolution. So that was just something that we were kind of thinking about, and because we had listened to it right before we went to Versailles.
So yeah, I completely recommend taking the trip out to see Versailles. I think it was a great way to spend one of our days in Paris. After we saw everything, we took the train home, and the grocery store hadn't closed yet, so we were able to pick up some more things. We got some like chicken nuggets and juice and stuff, to have a good spread for dinner. Then we went to bed, and day 3 we woke up and it was Christmas Day. So we were pretty excited to be spending Christmas in Paris. To start off the day, we went to the roof of our hotel to look at the view of the city, so we could see the Sacré-Cœur and the Eiffel Tower as well from our rooftop, which was a nice view. And then after that, we were able to walk because it's just right in our neighborhood of our hotel was the Sacré-Cœur.
Sacré-Cœur.
And it was pretty poppin'. There was a lot of people there on Christmas Day. Yeah, it was pretty busy, and it's a very beautiful church. And on the way home, we kind of walked down this like touristy street that was pretty like bumping, even though it was Christmas Day. And there was a shop, Felipe Conticini, that was open, and they had pastries. We got a croissant, a chocolate croissant, and some madeleines. And I think it was my favorite pastries of the whole trip we were there. I thought they were very, very delicious.
Yep. Super good. And then later that day, I think we were out and about, and or one of the places that I wanted to see was the Bastille, because again, it's a very historically important site, French Revolution site. It was a medieval fortress built in the 1300s. Over time, the king just kind of abused his power with this fortress slash prison, and the king would imprison anyone, no trial, no explanation, and just throw them in the Bastille, and they could be there for decades. And so the Bastille during the French Revolution was a symbol of unchecked royal authority. And on July 14th, 1789, the Parisian crowds stormed the Bastille and released all of the prisoners. And now July 14th is Bastille Day. It's a federal holiday in France. So yeah, we got to. There's obviously the prison has been torn down, and so it's no longer there. But we were able to see the site where the Bastille was, and in the subway station, there's an outline for the foundation, so you can kind of see where the building used to be.
And nearby, it just kind of like popped up on my map as like a place people go to is a nice park. I'm gonna butcher the way you say it, but Place des Vosges? So we don't know.
Place des Vosges.
We don't know. We'll learn maybe one day. But yeah, it was nice. It was just kind of I would think about it like as a quad. It was surrounded by beautiful buildings, a nice grassy area for Parisians to enjoy. So after we saw that, we just walked towards across the river Seine
Seine.
to the Jardin des Plantes.
Jardin des Plantes.
And this is Paris's botanical garden at their Natural History Museum. And this time of year, they have a light show at night that is kind of nature themed. So that was just fun to like walk through. It's one of not a lot is open on Christmas Day, but this was something that we could do. That was nice, and we got hot chocolate on the walk because again, it was pretty chilly. Then we made the journey home and we ordered some burgers for dinner. Turns out Uber Eats still had options for us on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So the next day, day 4, we decided we'd walk to the Louvre to see if we could get in, see if we could get tickets just from showing up. And so we talked to a Louvre worker that was outside, and they said no, that they were completely sold out through like, I don't know, something like January 4th, January 10th, like kind of after we would have gone back to the States after our trip. And I told her sometimes like it felt like things would look sold out and then I would go, and then I think it was on the day we went to Versailles, I looked again and more tickets came available like that day. But obviously we were headed to Versailles, so we couldn't get those. And she told me that like it wasn't real, that the website doesn't work a lot, and that just like it wasn't going to be a way for us to get tickets, but that they're like truly sold out through the end of our trip and there was like no way we could get in. So that was a bummer. But there's tons of museums in Paris. So we were able to like automatically get tickets to the Musée Marmottan Monet.
Musée Marmottan Monet.
And it's in a really cute part of town that we hadn't really seen yet at this point of our trip. So we got to kind of take the subway over there, and then we were looking for a cafe to just kind of get a snack. So Cafe Richard is where we stopped to get chocolat chaud again. A croissant and a chocolate croissant. Those were kind of our go-tos at these cafes. They were delicious. And we walked kind of like through some parks and got to the museum. And this museum houses the world's biggest collection of Monet paintings. And I'm really, really glad we went. It probably only took us like an hour or two to like go through everything. But we didn't see a ton of Monet anywhere else during the trip. So it's just, he's one of my favorite painters. Is he one of yours, Logan? Or yeah, he likes Monet. So it's just cool to see his pieces. We felt like we didn't see it anywhere else during our trip.
And then after that museum, we walked to the Trocadero. And yeah, I, before this trip, didn't really know what the Trocadero was. The only time I had heard the word Trocadero was on The Office.
I tell Tiffany to meet me in Paris by the Trocadero.
Yeah, we get to the Trocadero. It's right in front of the Eiffel Tower. It has an amazing view of the Eiffel Tower. The name Trocadero comes from the French victory in Spain, the Battle of Trocadero in 1823, and the current buildings were built for the 1937 World's Fair. And so, yeah, we got there and took a few pictures and then walked on down towards the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, it was cool to see the Eiffel Tower from like another angle. And there was another Christmas market that we ran into, and we got a raclette sandwich. It's just like a cheese that's very prone to melting, so they kind of like wipe it and then onto the bread, and it had sausage on it too. I thought that was one of the best sandwiches we had while we were there as well. And then after that, we went back to the hotel to rest. We ended up ordering chicken quesadillas that night for dinner. And kind of like on a whim, I checked the Louvre website again, and it was showing tickets available for the next day. So I was trying to buy them. My phone was kind of giving me trouble. Logan tried too. Logan was able to figure it out. So we were able to book tickets for the next day at 9 a.m. to go to the Louvre, which was awesome. I was thinking, oh man, I'm gonna have to come back to Paris. What a bummer if I have to come back during the summer again just to go to the Louvre, right? And see how beautiful it is, like than a different time of year. But it ended up working out, so I guess now we never have to go back. Just kidding. We hopefully will one day, but we got to see a lot. So the next day we headed to the Louvre.
Yep, so we woke up early and took the subway there, and the day before, or whenever we had seen the Louvre from the outside, we had seen that there were places where people would line up outside, but it looked like it was going to be pretty cold, and so we looked for a different way to enter. And so we found a way that basically, you take the subway and then you just stay underground, and yeah, you don't have to get out in the cold.
It was like some sort of mall or something.
Yeah, that's attached to the Louvre. So it's pretty nice waiting in line for not in the freezing cold. And there were two separate lines. There was one line for guided tours, and there was another line for other people. There was some kind of chaos about where the line started, but yeah, we got in line, and then right at like 9 o'clock, they started letting people in, and so the line we were pretty close to the front of the line, and we got in pretty quickly, and then I'd kind of looked at what I wanted to see, and towards the top of my list were a few things in the Middle Eastern section. The Sully section, they've got the Danone section and Richelieu, and I can't remember which one we went to first, but we went to the Middle Eastern section. So we walk in, and one of the first things that we see is the Neo-Assyrian human-headed winged bulls / lions that stood at the entrance of the Neo-Assyrian palace. They date from about 720 BC, and they came from the palace city of King Sargon II. And King Sargon II is famous for people who read the Old Testament, because if you read the book of Isaiah, when the Neo-Assyrian Empire comes in and destroys the northern kingdom of Israel, and the prophet Isaiah is warning King Ahaz. He's kind of warning him that God is going to send the Neo-Assyrian Empire to destroy Israel. And so in 720 BC, the Assyrians come in and they just kind of burn all of Israel, and then Jerusalem is kind of the only city that is saved because it has valleys on three sides. And so Sargon II comes, and he's trying to he's laid Jerusalem to siege, and he's trying to make them surrender, and then he ends up just going back to the Assyrian Empire. And so, yeah, we were looking at these winged bulls, and that's just kind of like, just all the times that I read about the Old Testament about, this this very important figure was just kind of very present when we were in that space. It's kind of a cool space to be in. Then we moved on, and one of the first things that we saw was the stele, I think stela or stele of Baal
Steel of Baal.
with a thunderbolt. And so it's just this small little stone with carvings in it about this Semitic god called Baal. He was the storm god, believed to control rain and fertility, and he's sometimes called the rider on the clouds. And this god is who the writers of the Old Testament constantly warned about. And so it was something that I just saw as Kristen and I were kind of walking. I just took pictures quickly of it, and then but the main thing that we were trying to get to was the Code of Hammurabi. It was carved around 1754 BC, and it's about 7.5 feet tall. It's a basalt stele,
Steel.
and it's covered in cuneiform writing. It's created by Hammurabi, the king of Babylon, and it's one of the earliest written legal codes in human history. And it's most famous for being the first recorded mention of an eye for an eye.
But yeah, that was like a cool thing is because it's like the first thing we went to and we were pretty like close to the front of the line when it opened. It was like it felt like we had the museum to ourselves for those first few things we saw. And then it was kind of funny, like, I don't know, like 2 to 3 minutes after we were done with the Code of Hammurabi, like you could see that other people kind of were like starting to swarm it, like guides came to talk to big groups about it. So it was cool that we got there first when there was less people around.
Yeah, it was definitely a popular item in the museum. Yeah, and then after we left the Code of Hammurabi, we went to the Egyptian section and we saw some mummified cats. Took pictures of that. We saw some mummies, and one pharaoh that we saw that's pretty, now that we've been to Egypt, that was pretty easy to identify was Pharaoh Akhenaten, who was kind of known, he was the monotheist king, basically got rid of the Egyptian pantheon and told everybody just to worship Aken.
Aten.
And then when he died, they went back. The priests got their jobs back. But he has a very distinct. His statues are very distinct. They're not designed like the rest of them. So yeah, we saw his carving and then just immediately knew it was Akhenaten. And we continued seeing other things. I think we left the Middle Eastern section, and one of the more popular things that we saw at the Louvre is the Nike of Samothrace, or Winged Victory. And so Kristen, do you want to talk about what you thought about that statue?
Yeah, it's just really beautiful. Like, and it seemed like we started on the left side, and then as we kept going, like it was more beautiful just like to see it from the different angles. And I think it was my favorite part of the museum. We even like at the gift shop, they like sell like, I don't know if they're 3D printed or they're just like mini statue versions of it for like hundreds of dollars or whatever. So if we ever, I don't know that we'll pay hundreds of dollars for one, but maybe we can find one cheaper online, or Logan can 3D print me one because it's just a very beautiful statue.
Yeah, there was a massive crowd around that statue, and then we moved on and we saw a lot of paintings. We were kind of making our way towards the Mona Lisa, and we were looking at paintings, and then I've read the Leonardo da Vinci biography by Walter Isaacson, which is very good. And so I had seen a lot of Leonardo da Vinci's paintings. So, but before we got to the room where the Mona Lisa was, I recognized a couple of the Da Vinci paintings. And so briefly talked to Kristen about kind of his style of painting. His biography mentions that he was kind of ahead of the curve regarding like painting depth, and so he would kind of make the people at the forefront of the painting more clear, and then the things in the background were kind of fading because he thought that's that better represented reality because we can't see things as well farther away. And so sometimes his contemporary artist maybe painted everything in focus. And so it was kind of supposedly a dead giveaway for Da Vinci paintings at the time. So we saw a couple of his paintings, and then we turned into the room where the Mona Lisa was. And yeah, there were a ton of people in there. Kristen, what were your thoughts when you saw that room?
Yeah, it's just interesting how, like, I think I might have watched a video about this, like, just how things like that become so popular, but it's just like you're in a museum of all these amazing things, and it's like, is the Mona Lisa's painting on its face like that much more impressive than some of the other
Yeah.
stuff we saw? And it's kind of just interesting now.
Yeah, no,
I'm not saying it's not impressive. I'm just saying it's just kind of funny what really takes like popularity like that.
Yeah, there were way more impressive paintings for sure. But yeah, so we briefly, took pictures in front of the Mona Lisa, then continued our journey, looking for cool things. And one thing that we had looked up that we wanted to see was the Venus of Milo. And so, yeah, that's something that there was a decent crowd around the Venus of Milo. We had headsets. We had paid for kind of an audio guided tour of the museum, and so many of the sculptures and paintings would have a number on them, and so we could type this number into our little headset, and then it would give us a 1 to 2 minute summary of the sculpture or the painting. And yeah, no, that's one sculpture that we sat down and spent time to listen to the audio track. And Kristen, do you remember the audio track, or what were your thoughts when you were looking at the Venus of Milo?
It's just another great sculpture. I don't remember too much about what the audio track had, but those were definitely helpful to just give you some extra info to know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
I'd recommend getting the guide,
Yeah, I think they were just kind of, just like the Nike of Samothrace, they were kind of speculating on what the arms would have been doing, because the arms for the Venus of Milo have been broken off. So yeah, they were kind of speculating where the arms were going, and geographically where this piece of art came from, when it came from, when it was made, who potentially made it. So it was very good. Then we continued to some paintings, and we saw Liberty Leading the People. And so it's a painting, it's a massive painting of with a French woman, bare-chested, kind of leading the people during the French Revolution. And so, yeah, in front of there, I think Kristen got her picture taken in front of that painting. It's very impressive just how big it is, and there was a lot of people around it. Then another painting that we saw was The Wedding at Cana. It's a massive, painting referencing a biblical story from John chapter 2, where Jesus turned water into wine. But yeah, very famous painting. And then I think we were kind of making our way out at this point. We were kind of knowing that, things were wrapping up. We had seen most of everything we wanted to see. And then we saw there was a room that just had a lot of marble statues, one of them being the Marley horses. And so we took pictures of that, and yeah, they were all just very impressive. Then we continued on our way out, and I think we were seeing paintings of Louis XIV. He had a massive painting made of himself with a very dark wig, and he loved it so much that he made a whole bunch of copies of it and had it sent to other people. But it was a very cool thing to see. Another thing we were able to see kind of on our way out, I think we kind of went past or went through the Egyptian section 2 or 3 times, but it was the Great Sphinx of Tanis. Not as impressive as the Sphinx, obviously, in Egypt, but still pretty cool to see since we had just been there. And then, I think the last thing we did at the Louvre was see the medieval fortress. And so they've got a really good setup, basically explaining the history of what the Louvre was before they turned it into a museum. And so we spent time reading and looking at all of that. It was pretty cool.
One thing we didn't get to do at the Louvre, on our map, it said like there was the room for the royal gems of the French royalty. So one, I just wanted to see what gems were left, but like two, the drama of it all. Like that's where the robbery happened a few months earlier. So I kind of wanted to like see it, but probably because of the robbery, it was blocked off, so no one was able to go into that room, the scene where it happened. So maybe that's a reason we'll go back someday. So putting you on the spot, Logan, the Louvre, very hard to get into.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't plan ahead like me, but and there's definitely some cool stuff in there. How would you compare it though to like the Gem or the Met? Like putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. They're all, I think if you love museums, I think you're gonna want to go to the Louvre. Yeah, as far as like comparing them to the Met, yeah, I guess the Met doesn't have a lot of just like iconic things that you're like, you have to go see the Code of Hammurabi. You have to go see the Nike of Samothrace.
The only thing I can really think of is like Washington crossing the Delaware, like
Yeah. So yeah, the Met has got it's an amazing museum, one of the best museums in the world. It doesn't have these iconic statues or paintings that just attract a huge crowd. Yeah, there's nothing in the Met that just everyone is surrounding.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense because, like, I don't know, like, one thing that was interesting is, like, when we're in the Louvre, like, a lot, obviously, their French sculptures and French paintings were, like, some of the best things, right? Because that's, like, their stuff, right? Versus I feel like the Met it's so global, but inherently when you're asking for other countries' things, that you might not be getting the best, like, stuff. So then, yeah, like me saying the Washington crosses the Delaware, I feel like that's like there's not a lot of really cool American stuff just because it's such a younger country, right?
Yeah.
But like that's kind of like the one thing I can think of. But like to your point, you're not when you get there, you can sit there and not a lot of people are around you. Like it's not a huge crowd surrounding it, you know.
Yeah.
What about the Gem? The Gem's just so unique, you know.
The Gem's just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the Gem is outstanding. Yeah, it's only Egyptian stuff, but it's so it's a different vibe than the Met or the Louvre because the Louvre and the Met have things from different countries.
So they're all great.
They're all great.
I like that.
Got to go to
answer.
all of them.
I like that answer. All right, so then we had one day left. We got so much of the stuff we wanted to see done. We crushed it. There's obviously more we could have done, but Logan started feeling sick. So I was kind of sick at the beginning of our Paris trip, and Logan got sick out at the end. And so while Logan was resting, I took a walk, like maybe a mile or so, to the Galeries Lafayette store. I had seen the one with Logan on the Champs-Élysées earlier, but there's like a separate, bigger one that I got to look at. It's just like amazingly decorated during the holidays. So a lot of people were around like trying to take pictures of the big like hanging tree. And I was able to go to one of the higher floors to check out the FAO Schwarz toy store. I saw like a graphic in the store that said they had about like around 7 across the whole entire world. So now it's cool that I've gotten to see 2 between New York City and Paris. And one of the reasons I wanted to go is I wanted to check out what Jellycats they had. I was looking for like an actual croissant one, but in the store they just had like the chocolate croissants, they're very cute, but somewhat unnecessary to purchase. It's fun to look at. So after exploring that kind of department store for a while, I started to walk back to the hotel. And on my way walking home back to the hotel, I saw their version of kind of like a Lion King on Broadway show, which was kind of cool. A lot of people were lined up to see that. And yeah, I finally got back to the hotel after being out for a little bit, and then rested. And while at the point where it got dark, I decided to go back onto the rooftop of our hotel. It was freezing, but I just wanted to see the Eiffel Tower like lit up at night, which I'm glad I went up there. And then, which I didn't think about as much as the Sacré-Cœur was also all lit up. So that was like a really cool view because our hotel was much closer to that, so we could see it pretty clearly from the hotel rooftop, which was pretty. So then the next day we woke up. It was our last travel day of this amazing trip. So we flew from Paris to London and then London to Atlanta on British Airways. On our little short flight from Paris to London, they had these really good candy cane chocolates that were like probably the best chocolate I had like the whole trip. And then in the London airport, it's kind of unique because they don't assign your gate until like, I don't know, like 20 minutes before you board, which I thought was interesting. And it's because like in the United States, airlines lease out gates, but in at least the London airport, they don't lease to airlines. It's like a common shared thing that the airlines all use together. So that's why there's kind of more like last minute gate assignments. And it's really only like when the plane is here and it's ready to go, like it's actually, the flight's actually happening. So because of that, there's like, you can spend more time in the common areas. You're not worried about getting to your gate. So Logan and I sat down for lunch. I got fish and chips. Wasn't the best, which is so funny because I thought going to London, that'd be like the thing to get. Logan got chicken tikka masala, right?
Very good.
Very good. Logan says, and it's not just him that says this, the best Indian food is in London. Has really good Indian food because of the connection between those two countries. I thought the flights were pretty good. I mean, they're long flights, but we were just excited to be able to get home. And then Ashley was nice enough to pick us up from the airport. And we truly had such a great time on our trip. It was good to be back in our own bed, but we're just so grateful we were able to have like this experience. We saw so much cool stuff. Our travels went by relatively like very, very smoothly, in my opinion. We're so grateful.
Yeah, it's great. Go to Paris.
Shout out to the best travel buddy ever, Logan Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't have done it without you.